The story of the late Tob Cohen, who was not quite 70 years old, and his Kenyan sweetheart, Sarah Wairimu Cohen, has dominated the Kenyan media for some days now. And it is a story that contains many mysteries. And we are going to try in this show to look at some of those mysteries and try and shed some light. And of course, we have to be careful because the matter is in court. Now, let us be very clear about something before we proceed. We live in a civilized society, allegedly. And the way things work is that if a crime is committed, you get a suspect, you produce enough evidence in a court of law, and then that suspect is convicted, found guilty, and they get their punishment, and justice is done. This process should never involve discussions and debate in the public, on social media. Never ever. And what we're dealing with here is extremely serious, because we're talking about murder. And the law, virtually anywhere in the world, is that if there's any reasonable doubt about a suspect having committed a murder, then that suspect walks. They're set free. And with good reason. You don't want to send an innocent person to life imprisonment or to the gallows. But despite all that, innocent people are still found guilty of murder all the time. It happens all the time. And so, let us be wise. Because as the Tanga team have found out, if you condone and cheer on when something bad happens to a fellow human being, you need to remember that tomorrow you could be on the receiving end. Always do something that will stand the test of time, to the best of your ability. That was a very important introduction to this show because we're going to be balanced. We're going to look at this from all possible angles, because I'm very sure people will start saying, hey, Chris, this is obvious. Have you been paid by the defense team? Yep, I'm expecting that. And I don't mind. But I will always try and be balanced in everything that I do on this channel. So let's get down to it. And as usual, let's start this story at the beginning. Tob Cohen, a Dutch national, came to Kenya in 1987. Very many Mzungus come to our beautiful country, fall in love with it, and never leave. And in many instances, they fall in love with our beautiful Kenyan women. And in Bwana Cohen's case, he fell in love with his personal assistant. And they got married in 2007. Now, this is very interesting. According to Sarah Wairimu, Mrs. Cohen, Bwana Cohen changed in 2014, and he did not change positively. What happened is that the marriage entered a very rocky phase, from which it never recovered. Now, the reason why I find this interesting is that years ago, somebody told me the 7th year in a marriage is very important. It is the make or break year. They assured me that in every marriage without exception, year number 7, And of course at the time I dismissed it. How can you be so sure? Why 7? Why every marriage? Well, here it has popped up again. Anyway, by the time a big wedding took place at the couple's residence in Spring Valley sometime last year, things were obviously very bad in this marriage, and it was clear for all to see. The wedding, of course, involved Sarah's biological daughter from another relationship, who had been taken care of by Tob Cohen, and adopted as his daughter. It is quite likely that this wedding will come up in the trial. Now, so far, we have had two very different versions of what went down during that wedding, the wedding reception at the home of the couple. Let's start with Mrs. Cohen's version. She says Mr. Cohen was behaving very badly during this particular wedding reception. She says, first of all, he was very upset about his daughter's choice for a husband. He told everybody who could listen to him that it was the wrong choice. Mrs. Cohen made it very clear that he was in a very bad mood on that day. But then she also says that on that day, her husband was trying to seduce her daughter's friends, her young daughter's friends. Now, the other version from a close friend of the late Tob Cohen, a man called Patrick Muiruri, yes, the former legislator for Gatundu North. Bwana Muiruri says that they, Cohen's friends, including himself, were very disappointed at the way the reception went. Why? Because despite the fact that Cohen had treated his adopted daughter like his very own, even educating her overseas, etc., taking good care of her through the years, he was completely ignored during the function. He was never acknowledged. And at one point, when he took the microphone to try and say something, Mrs. Cohen, Sarah Wairimu, snatched the microphone away from him and told him off in front of everybody. Now, as a married man, I can tell you, all that sounds quite normal, in a marriage that is on the rocks. Couples fight, and sometimes these fights can go to the extreme. If only couples would do the wise thing, and spare their friends the embarrassment and the drama. But then I guess they can't, because these things involve emotions. And when emotions are involved, a human being is capable of anything. But Patrick Muiruri had something else to say, that will obviously be very relevant at the trial. Because so far it appears that he may have been one of the last people to speak to the late Tob Cohen. Muiruri says he talked to Cohen from about 9:45 on the night of Thursday, 19th July. That's the night before the day Cohen vanished, disappeared. They talked from 9:45 p.m. to a little after 10 p.m. And according to Muiruri, in that conversation, Bwana Cohen was very worried for his life. And he told Muiruri that should anything happen to him, the person who will have been responsible will be his wife. Now, fascinatingly, a week before the conversation of that night, Bwana Cohen had written a letter to the Director of Public Prosecutions. He was worried that his wife was colluding with police officers in Parklands and Gigiri, senior police officers, to have him charged and convicted of assaulting his wife. And he was worried that the main objective was to get him deported, and therefore leave him in a situation where he was going to lose his valuable properties in Kenya, including a multi-billion shilling hotel still under construction in Nyeri, very close to the rural home of Mrs. Cohen. And so let us come to the events that took place after July 20th, which is the day that Mr. Cohen went missing. Mrs. Cohen said that she believed that he had traveled out of the country. But close friends of Cohen, and his relatives, did not buy that. Indeed, even local police did not for 1 minute believe that story. And the reason should be obvious. The late Cohen had talked to too many people about his marital troubles, and especially the fact that he believed that he was going to be murdered by his wife. In other words, murder was on the minds of very many people right from the word go. And they did not want to change their minds, even after a video appeared on YouTube of Sarah Wairimu Cohen appealing to her husband to come back home from wherever he was hiding, even despite the fact that she used her pet name for her husband. Yeah, City Boy. City Boy, si urudi tu nyumbani, zile shida zetu zote za ndoa tutasort. That was the gist of her very passionate plea to her husband to return. Now, about 2 weeks ago, after endless interrogation that had taken place since Bwana Cohen went missing, the police finally arrested Mrs. Cohen. And then on Friday, 58 days since Cohen was reported missing, his body was found in a septic tank on the grounds of his house in Spring Valley. Or to be more accurate, the couple's house. Now I'd like to introduce another prominent character in this very riveting tale. Yeah, Mrs. Cohen's lawyer, Philip Murgo. Now, this is a lawyer with very wide experience. Not only is he a former director of public prosecutions, oh yes, but he is also the lawyer who defended a man called Kamlesh Patni, yeah, the Goldenberg scam of the early 90s, yeah, where the Kenyan taxpayer lost billions of shillings. But representing Kamlesh Patni is not my point. My point is, Bwana Murgo represented both Patni and the organization that was prosecuting him, the Central Bank of Kenya, at different times, yeah, during that very long trial. Now, obviously this has issues, yeah, because when you're a lawyer to a client, there's client-lawyer privilege. Yeah, the client tells you a lot of secrets, gives you a lot of inside information. And so you take in all this information, then at some future point, you represent the people trying to nail that particular client, the central bank. Obviously, this is something many people believe was unethical. Now, Bwana Murgo called a press conference yesterday. And at that presser, apart from pointing out quite a number of illegal, against the law things that investigators did in the course of the investigations, he also focused on a number of strange things, yeah, connected to the finding of the body of Mr. Cohen. Like the fact that the cement sealing the manhole, yeah, where the body was found, was very fresh. Obviously done in the last 3 or 4 days when his client was already in police custody. And Murgo also pointed out that the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has made the evidence-gathering process public. The press are being fed with a lot of information, some of which is not true. It's false. This is, of course, against the rules. Yeah, and Murgo said, since the DC have done this, he has decided to respond in kind. He has also decided to go public with details from the defense team. Now, of course, 2 wrongs don't make a right. But obviously, Bwana Murgo believes that this will have a certain advantage or an edge for his client. And of course, we can't argue with him. Yeah, I mean, don't argue with a man with that kind of experience and background. All we can do is wait and see, yeah, where this strategy is going. Wow, this is quite a case. Now, it is very unfortunate that what is going on in social media is very wrong. Like the profiling of the Kikuyu community. Yeah, you hear people saying, I will never get married to a Kikuyu. In other words, the public has already tried and convicted Sarah Wairimu. And by the way, this, coupled with what we are told the DC have done in the course of the investigations, are the kinds of things that could very easily lead to a mistrial. This is very serious, because in case the suspect is guilty, they could easily walk away on technicalities. And so what will happen is that most people who think they're heading in a certain direction may not end up in that direction. They'll end up in the opposite direction from where they want to go with this. You know, if it was up to me, I would look at the marital issues very separately, yeah, from the murder issues or issues connected to the murder. And I would only link issues from the two separate piles when evidence leads me there. Yeah, not just on assumptions. Because the relationship between a wife and a husband is a very complex thing. Yeah, you'll find that in many instances, the wife sees things very differently from the way the husband sees them. Yeah, and sometimes that fact alone creates more problems in a marriage than anything else, or anything really solid that is wrong in that marriage. And again, certain actions by either couple are caused by something that has happened within that marriage. And both parties may not be willing to reveal the embarrassing incident that led to the particular squabble. For instance, the late Tob Cohen at one point complained that his wife was denying him his conjugal rights. Oh boy, how can you ever solve such issues when they're made public? Anyway, bottom line, the relationship between a man and a woman in a marriage is extremely complex and must never be reduced to people expressing their careless opinions on social media. Kenyans all over the world are of course following developments in this case with very keen interest. And so will I on your behalf in the next weeks and months to come. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.